The first huge boss of Dark Souls is at the same time as surprisingly far relative to the Tower Knight boss. Let's talk about the Gaping Dragon. This is also FromSoft's first real attempt at the dragon boss fight. Technically, the demon god from Demon Souls was the first one, but honestly, it was just a gimmick boss. It really did a poor job at capturing those feelings of taking down a colossal dragon. Gaping Dragon is much more straightforward boss. It doesn't try to make the fight grander, the threat bigger by making an encounter a sort of twisted puzzle which didn't have anything to do with the core game mechanics. By that I mean, they didn't just put two stupid switches and call it a boss fight. They actually let you fight the dragon this time. This was a step in the right direction in my opinion. But I'm not saying that the Dragon God fight was horrible or something. Honestly, if you wanna know my opinion, just go watch that episode maybe. We still have a long way before we get to some of the best dragon boss fights. Gaping Dragon was undoubtedly an improvement to this formula, but the reality is it has some flaws. Let's start outside the boss arena. While exploring the sewers, player can stumble upon a balcony with a few rats and a channeler enemy. Channeler is a special type of enemy, first introduced in the Undead Parish. If you kill him in those two locations, he won't respawn if you sit at the bonfire. He will stay dead for the rest of the playthrough. You wanna deal with him before heading on the Gaping Dragon. He is not very powerful on his own, but he can cast a spell that buffs any nearby enemies. He can also shoot soul arrows from the distance, so if you don't take the channeler down, he will shoot at you during the boss fight and can even buff up the dragon, making him much stronger. I think the designers could draw the inspiration from their two previous bosses. Regular enemy shooting at the player during the boss fight can be traced back to the Tower Knight from the Demon Souls. I assume that you've watched the previous episode, so I won't introduce this encounter again. Killing the crossbowman before the actual fight was pretty cool. It built up the tension and gave you the opportunity to learn some of the Tower Knight's moves by observing them. But it was exciting only on the first attempt. If you died, you had to kill all of them again. This was a serious problem, cause the part of the experience of From Software bosses is to die and learn from your failure. The partial solution to this problem laid in another boss design. Before the fight with Fool's Idol, you have to kill the prisoner sorcerer. He doesn't respawn after the arena resets, just like the channeler. Like I've said, I can only guess what was the creative process that led to the birth of a Gaping Dragon, but I really like to look for similarities between bosses. I think this way you can get a better understanding of the core elements of a given encounter, and if you are aware of them, if you understand how they work, what they achieve, you can create new and unique experiences by mixing those core elements. So in this series I wanna help you to build up a dictionary, a vocabulary of such core elements. Sure, I could do it in just one video, but it would be super long, and throughout this series I wanna not only show you this dictionary, but I also wanna show you how you could come up with something like this by analyzing your favorite games on your own. Those videos are only gonna get longer and longer, aren't they? Anyways, back to the Gaping Dragon. The arena is fairly simple. It is properly spacious for an enemy this big. At the end of it is a deep abyss from which the dragon emerges, and the fight begins. How do you even fight such a monstrosity? Thankfully, not by playing hide and seek with it. Besides the channeler, Gaping Dragon doesn't hide any more aces in his sleeves. You can just run up to him and deal damage. Man, you could really describe any boss like that, so let's dive a bit deeper. Get it? Deeper, because this location is called the depth. Compared to this boss, you are like an ant. He can kill you just by walking onto you. I could argue that the most important thing in this fight is the positioning. You have to position yourself in the right spot so to not get crushed by him. At any time he can start moving forward, then he becomes one huge hitbox. You master this fight by finding the right spot to attack him. Be in the wrong place and you won't be able to respond quickly enough to his moves. If you wanna get the Dragon King Great Axe, you have to go for his tail. You can cut it off. This will grant you this powerful weapon and prevent the boss from performing tail attacks. Another good place to attack is his tiny head. It actually is his weak spot, so you will deal some extra damage. But be careful, because you will have very short window to react if he starts marching right onto you. If you don't want to wait for the right opening, you can just attack his legs. It will be a bit slower, but I find it more manageable. When it comes to his moveset, he has a few interesting attacks. He can rear back and then slam his exposed ribcage onto the ground, dealing massive damage. He can also slam his head repeatedly. This also hits like a train and covers pretty wide area. Besides that, he will occasionally drop some acid that will stay on the ground for some time. If you haven't cut off his tail, he will of course use it to kill you. This boss can also grab you if you're in front of him. You can try to spam L1 R1 to escape this grab. What I really like in his moveset is the way he acts when the player is behind him. He doesn't just awkwardly rotate to face you. I'm looking at you, Dark Souls. Instead, he takes off the ground, rotates mid-air and then falls back to the ground. This boss isn't something I really look forward to when I replay Dark Souls 1, but he is not a bad fight. As for the first real dragon boss fight, it works pretty decently. I'd say it is most basic way of implementing a fight with extraordinary big opponent, and the addition of the channeler makes it a bit more interesting. Upon defeat, he dropped 25,000 souls, Blacktown Key, Twin Humanities and a Homeward Bone. If you've picked the Master Key as a starting item, you can totally skip this boss. Just go straight to the Blighttown from the Valley of the Valley of Drakes. Thank you for watching. To the next time.